Good morning, students, and welcome back to another class of English literature where I will introduce you to the next genre of literature, that is poetry. Now, before we start with the poem, let's know what is poetry. Poetry means the art of employing words in such a manner as to produce an illusion on the imagination. The art of doing by means of words, just like the painter does by means of color. In today's class, we will start with a poem titled The Patriot by Robert Browning. About the poet, Robert Browning was born on May 7th, 1812 in London, and he died on December 12, 1889 in Venice. He was a major English poet of the Victorian age, noted for his mastery of dramatic monologue and psychological portraiture. His most noted work was The Ring and the Book, the story of a Roman murder trial in 12 books. Some of his famous works include My Last Duchess, The Pied Piper of Hamelin, Meeting at Night, The Laboratory, etc. Besides poetry, Browning tried his hands on plays. Some of them includes King Victor and King Charles, Pippa Passes, In a Balcony, etc. The central theme of the poem, The Patriot. The Patriot is mainly based on the theme of rise and fall of fortune. The narrator, the patriot, is welcomed with feverish joy and paths of roses in the first two stanzas by the townspeople. But by the end of the poem, we see that those same people have humiliated and executed him within a year. This shows that glory and fortune do not last forever. People are fickle-minded and change their opinions without a second thought, like we can see in the poem. Someone who is loved today may easily be hated tomorrow. The poem has undertones of religiosity, the next theme. The first stanza itself mentions flags fluttering on the church spires. What do you mean by spires, children? It's a pyramidal structure on the top of a building or on top of church or cathedral. The patriot is welcomed with ringing bells. The final stanza has the patriot being optimistic about death as he believes that God does justice to one and all, and he will recognize that the patriot has done nothing immoral. About this faith in God and the belief that he will be safe in God's abode shows that a patriot is a religious man. Also, there is a biblical reference when the poet mentions the reaping of the harvest. Betrayal is also a minor theme in the poem, as the poet fetched the son for the townspeople, and in return they stamped him as criminal and executed him. All his good deeds were forgotten and he was brought to a humiliating and painful death. Moving on, we have the literary devices used in the poem. The first one, pathetic fallacy. Now this is a literary term used for attributing human emotions and conduct to all aspects within nature. For example, I go in the rain. The rain here is symbolic of number of things. The patriot gets wet by the rain, losing his dignity. Another aspect can be the rain washes him clean, representing his innocence. The rain also works to create a tensed atmosphere. The next literary device, alliteration. It is the occurrence of the same sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. For example, roses, roses, myrtle mixed. This use of alliteration adds rhyme and rhythm to the poem. You can see roses, R and R are repeated. Myrtle mixed, M is repeated. The next literary device, is metaphor. The use of roses in the first stanza has been to symbolize people's love and affection towards him. The celebratory attitude of the people and their honoring the patriot has been metamorphosed as roses. Glory, power, and immortality has been metamorphosed as the sun. He asks the men for the sun as it is ultimate symbol of power. And you see my harvest what I reap. Here, the patriot's deeds have been referred to as harvest, and the consequences have been metamorphosed as reaping. The next literary device is personification. The house roofs seem to heave and sway. Here, the roofs of the houses have been given human characteristic of heaving and swaying. This has been done to refer to the crowd on the roofs and their frenzy on seeing the patriot, which is causing them to clamber over each other and give an impression of swaying. The next literary device is imagery. The poem begins with an image of the past where the patriot is being welcomed back to his town with paths laden with roses and myrtles. The use of roses projects a positive picture as they symbolize love. Now, the heaving rooftops are evidence to the fact that the town is cluttered and crowded one. Here, it creates a contrast between the past and the present. The image of crowded rooftops is juxtaposed, creating a contrast with the image of empty rooftops at present. Now, rain here acts as a negative agent as it creates a scene of misery and works in changing the mood of the poem. The patriot is seen walking through the town and is bleeding in pain. The reference to safety in God's abode ends the poem on an upbeat note as the imagery is of positivity and optimism. Moving on, we have some few symbols used in the poem. Roses, it symbolizes honor, respect, and passion. Path is symbolic of political career. Myrtle symbolizes love, purity, generosity, and innocence. Spires is a symbolic term used for strength and hopeful gestures. Sun represents something beyond access or unreachable. That is, the patriot had done something which was very difficult for him to achieve. Window stands for freedom. Forehead, a symbol of good luck, but bleeding forehead symbolizes bad luck. Rope symbolizes restrictions, devoid of power and confinement. Rain, a symbol for period of despair and trial. Now, before we start with the paraphrasing or explanation of the poem, let's have a quick gist of the poem. The Patriot is a dramatic monologue, which means a single person who is not the poet utters the speech in a specific situation that makes up the whole of the poem. The poet speaks through the medium of an imagined character and achieves the same objectivity that characterizes a drama. This poem is written by the renowned English poet and playwright Robert Browning. He is well known for his dramatic monologues and is widely celebrated as one of the foremost poets of the Victorian era. In this poem, Browning talks about politics, patriotism, religious faith, and the harsh reality of the leaders who are true to their sense of patriotism. It speaks about the sacrifice of such leaders who are misunderstood by the people. The speaker of the poem is a patriot. In the poem, the patriot narrates his tale to us as he has been taken to the scaffold to be executed publicly for his misdeeds. Now, what do you mean by scaffold? Scaffold is a platform or structure on which criminals are punished by being hanged or by being hanged. He tells us of his situation, how he was once loved by everyone and how he is now despised by the same set of people. The patriot is innocent of having done any misdeeds, and it is only out of the misunderstanding of the people that he is being put to death. His death sentence is for the wrong reason, and although he tried to persuade the people to listen to him, it has done him no good. Now, explanation of the poem. The first stanza. It was roses and roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed, such flags they had, a year ago on this very day. Understanding of this stanza. The poem starts with the patriot describing an event, a grand public welcome which he received a year ago on the same day, that is the present day. He is reminiscing the past, that is, he is remembering the past, and he builds a picture for us as he remembers that day. His walking path was covered with lots of rose petals mixed with myrtle. The path was festooned with these flowers, especially for him. People standing on the roofs of their houses cheered for him as he passed by. They were overjoyed to see the patriot. The spires of the church, spires I already told you, pointed, tapering roofs we generally see on old cathedrals and similar buildings, were covered with flaming flags, bright flags, which the people had put up for creating an atmosphere of celebration. Now people were overwhelmed to greet their hero and were enthusiastic to see him as he passed by. It is only logical to assume that this grand celebration must be a result of some achievement on the speaker's part. Although it was a victory in war or assemblage for fighting one or winning a popular election to an office or being nominated as a ruler or maybe something else. It's all an assumption. It can be assumed that this point in the poem that it concerned the common people highly and they were all very happy about the occasion. The patriot is seen as a public hero in this stanza who is greeted with much love and affection by the commoners. Here I have an extract for you which you are going to note down in your notebook. Thank you, children. Go through the first stanza of the poem, read the poem thoroughly, and we'll meet in the next class where I'll brief you on the second, third, and fourth stanza. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, children.